Hi everyone, welcome back to Novel Nomad and welcome to another Top 5 Wednesday. So today I'm going to be doing the topic which is top 5 favourite books that include insert favourite paranormal creature. Now I'm going to do another Victober edition because it was so much fun doing the Victober villains. So this time I decided to do one of the more sinister elements to most Victorian novels, especially some of them that were more Gothic in their casting or thriller and suspense, as they were being very popular of the time. But what I find very fascinating, and stick with me, I know it's not a creature, but it is a creature of its own creation in Victorian literature, and that is the unknown other. I know, not very scary or very physical in the sense, but at the same time it caused many a ghost story and horror story to be written during the Victorian time. So might as well start off a little bit pre-Victorian, but nonetheless within the 1800s, and that is going to be Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Now, Frankenstein's creature truly is the physical manifestation of the other, of the unknown. So this follows Frankenstein, where he goes beyond medical ethics, beyond moral ethics at the time, and creates a creature that is cast from the corpses of various humans. And upon seeing this creature come alive in his great creation, he actually abandons the creature. So the creature himself then grows up and has to fend for himself and learn many of the things that humans are taught from infancy, and he is expected to learn them within the space of a few months. So I find this book incredibly fascinating, especially as it began a very interesting topic of medical ethics during the Victorian period, but why I like it for the fact that it holds on to this Gothic theme of the other, this Gothic creature, is that it really puts a physical face and a physical threat into the other. It's something that is unknown. Science is unknown. There was a burgeoning of science in the 1700s, and that very much continued into the fascination of natural scientists and home scientists into the 1800s. So to have this great unknown of science and medical revelation have a physical form, and this great void that of unknown ideas and unknown possibilities of humankind, that is fantastic, and that's what Mary Shelley manages to capture so vividly in Frankenstein. So jumping forward quite dramatically, and we head to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. Now once again, this is a physical manifestation of the other, but the other in this case is the human mental faculties. So what Stevenson is querying in this one is, can the human mind be simply categorized as moral or as immoral? Can it be categorized by another human's perception? Or is there something truly unique to everyone? Because at this time, remember, it was greatly religious, so you either had one sensibility or the other. You were either good or bad. So to have this questioning of a person's character, not only to be within the body but also the mind, is incredibly fascinating. So a little bit of background, if you don't know the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, is that Dr. Jekyll is an eminent physician, and he likes to play around and have fun with chemistry. Yet again, science is coming very much into the fold. And he creates a potion. When he drinks it, he becomes Mr. Hyde. And Mr. Hyde is basically a highly immoral character who gets up to many, many bad things. But it plays in the reader's mind, is this a split personality, as the book is often referred to for that matter, or is it really Dr. Jekyll managing to hide all his immoral sides to his own self and his own mentality through the disguise of Mr. Hyde? Is he actually multifaceted and actually have these two sides to him that, whilst seem incongruous at first, they're actually really the same person and really have the same wants and desires? So that is why I love Robert Louis Stevenson, for his play on the other, but to have it very much within the mind and within the person, and really questioning society's expectations on people and how the other and the unknown within the mind can be just as terrifying as the external. So taking it into a little bit more of an external threat, I'm going to say some of the stories within The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. Now, what I find very interesting are these are actually quite short narratives, but they really explore different elements of Victorian society, and many of the stories that I find incredibly interesting is that they deal with a perceived threat, a perceived unknown that the Victorian society was trying to understand. There is gas, lighting, there's electricity, and one of my favourite ones is the speckled band. And it really has this idea of the unknown world beyond England, because by this time in the late Victorian period, the empire was very well established. So instead of having, like you do in Jane Eyre, having this slight dabbling of the West Indies, in Sherlock Holmes they really explore how the world and the unknown world is coming into English society and how that is affecting English sensibilities, English society as they see themselves, and also how they can interact with these unknowns into their own circles. So the speckled band is quite fascinating. I'm not going to give it away because it is a short story, but it is really, really good. I did not guess it. I usually can predict a Sherlock Holmes, but that one I did not guess. So it really deals with the unknown external world threats within the English home itself and within England. Next we have the unknown, which is going to be moved out of England and placed into Africa. Now Africa was a colony of not only England but France and Dutch colonies as well. But what I find quite interesting about The Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad is he really makes the other be the English. So this is a very contentious novel for the late Victorian period, because obviously the belief of the white man's burden and the white man's superiority really places the other within the colonialist mentality. So whilst they go to this unknown place where they're exploring through the river down the middle of the Dutch Congo, and they're looking for an explorer who has in a way gone wild. And what this is exploring the fear of the other, where these men who go out on these expeditions and they come back changed. And so there was an unknown to all those people at reading at home about what was truly happening abroad, and was their conduct in the colony the same as they would in their home society. And this really questions that, because the conduct of the colonialists, they begin to not only mentally and physically break down from the exertions of the travel. They're not these noble explorers. They really start to be affected by the environment, and they are slowly being made to feel like they do not belong. And when they find the explorer who went wild, as say, he has been fully converted into a mentality that he believes he belongs there, but he is like a divine god. So it really plays with this idea of the white man's superiority against the idea that the colonialists were doing more damage than good within these colonies, and they were really affecting the livelihoods and the way of life for the local people. So the other in this case is really interesting, explored within a Victorian context, because it's really making the Victorian society come face to face with what their impact is on the world at large. So really the other is themselves. Finally, one that falls probably slightly outside of the Victorian period into the very early Edwardian period, and that is Henry James' Turn of the Screw and Aspen Papers. Now, Turn of the Screw I find is quite interesting. So we're going to go have a look at the other back within the English society, but this is really breaking down the idea of children and the expectations of children and women within society. So what I find quite fascinating about this one is that you actually have a governess who looks after these two young children, and she starts to see some certain markings of perhaps possession, perhaps evil, and there's something that she just cannot understand about them. She believes they're unworldly and unnatural, and there's almost a devilish quality about them. So whilst that is incredibly fascinating, the other in this sense isn't the children, but it is the governess herself. And it really questions the idea of how women and how children are perceived, because the children and childhood became very heavily idolized within Victorian society, and how women were naturally supposed to be nurturing. So this really puts into question how there is almost an other side to children. There's not the inherent goodness that everyone believes. They do have their own personality and their own decisions and faculties beyond what they were just expected to be in Victorian society. And the governess was not just a stock standard carer for children, but it was someone who really had their own mind and could be influenced by many different factors. This really does turn into more of a psychological ghost story in a way, but I really find it fascinating for how it really starts to break down the expectations expectations of children and women within society, and really casting the possibilities for them being beyond the Victorian social mould into their own people, into their own self. Alright, so that is my Top 5 Wednesday, a bit of a different one, looking at the other or the unknown, which was greatly explored throughout Victorian society and in the Gothic. I find it highly fascinating to have this Gothic element and also creature being so prevalent throughout the 1800s, and how it led to the creation of many suspense and horror novels. So let me know down below your favourite paranormal creature that was like birthed in the Victorian period almost, or you have a favourite unknown or unquestionable figure within a book that really starts to challenge the social norms. So thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!